everyone. Welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, also founder of We Deepen, wedeepen.com. If you haven't yet, check out the calendar. Go to wedeepen.com/calendar. And if you were to go there right in this moment, you would see lots of Tantra speed date activities. These experiences are happening in major cities throughout the United States, including Seattle, New York City, San Francisco, Boston, Sacramento, Los Angeles, as well as London. And today I have a really fun person to share with you because he is actually the originator of Tantra Speed Date and also co-founder of the Tantra Institute, which is the creator of Tantra Speed Date. So we get to dive in deep into conversation with him. I have so many questions. I source questions from the We Deepen WhatsApp group. And I want to hear more about this experience. So Guy Shahar, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here, and I love to be fully transparent of how we show up in these episodes. So Guy and I just had one of those moments where we started recording and then we're using Squadcast. We're recording remotely. I'm here in Maryland. He is in New York City. Mm-hmm. And Zoom compresses the audio. So the first episodes for me of Deepen with Christina were done by Zoom. I love recording in person, but when I can't, I'm now trying this new platform, Squadcast. So fingers crossed that it will work well. And if you record podcasts, this might be a great platform for you to check out. It's called Squadcast. So as we dive into this, first I want to share that this particular episode will be good for you if you are currently single. I use that word currently deliberately because that's an I am statement. And depending on your desires, just be cautious of how you use those words. You're currently single. You're currently not in a relationship. This episode will also be good if you have friends who are currently single and you want to help them out and play matchmaker, set them up with your friends, with dating apps. Like, get us off the dating apps, although they can be fun. And also introduce them to experiences like Tantra Speed Date. And then also this podcast will be good for you if you're currently in a relationship, because we're going to talk about Tantra and the practices of Tantra. And I have been told before by couples that they feel as though the only things that are getting marketed to them to support their relationships are therapy or sex parties. And there's much more that you can do. Just like you have a self-care practice, you can have a relational practice with your significant other. Actually, I highly suggest it if you want to thrive in your relationships. As we go into this, I want to share some of the reviews from Tantra Speed Date. I know this experience has been popping off for maybe 4 or 5 years. So some of these reviews, one of them first starting with Justin in New York, he says, I now feel that I have a much deeper understanding of what it means to be a man in a relationship and how to make dating a beautiful experience. Brandy in San Diego says, I really felt like a goddess surrounded by strong, beautiful, empowered men. John from San Francisco, unquestionably the best dating event I've ever attended. It was transformative. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, Catherine B., she says, I met the love of my life through Tantra Speed Date and have been open to wonderful healing powers of Tantra. I was hesitant to go that night, but I'm so glad I did. I imagine she's definitely probably glad she met the love of her life. So yes, she scored. She won the jackpot. thank you for being here and for having this conversation with you. And thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, because it's important for people to experience and feel love and also be supported in their dating journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to be on the show. Those are some pretty good testimonials.
Those are some good testimonials. So how did this all begin?
Well, I mean, how did it all begin? I've always been very, very interested in dating. I've always been very into meeting new people and seeing, how I connect with somebody else, how I can learn about other people and how they live their lives, what I learn about myself when I interact with somebody new in that kind of an intimate way. And, when I started to study Tantra, I studied many different modalities, and in the Tantra lineage, primarily I studied with Charles Muir at the Source School of Tantra Yoga. And one of the things that Charles is really good at is in leading pujas. Right, so a puja ceremony. A puja is an offering. It's a way to engage in an activity as a group that is a offering. And in the way that it's set up there, there's two circles, and generally there's a circle of male-bodied persons on the outside, a circle of female-bodied on the inside, and you kind of rotate from person to person, having a tantric experience with each one. And I remember that in those experiences, I would be connecting with different women and feeling like, wow, like this is so wonderful. Like I'm connecting so deeply with this person that, that I don't know very well, but there's a very quickly an intimacy that's being developed here that felt really beautiful and opening and lovely. And, and then you bring your hands into namaste and you bow to each other, and they move on to the next person, and someone new is sitting in front of you and you're having another experience. And it's like, wow, now I'm having an intimate connection with this person. And I remember thinking, a good amount of the people in the room are singles. And I remember thinking, like, this is really great. Like, there are some people that I connected with that I want to connect with more. But after the sort of, reverent puja, it feels like a little weird or creepy to like walk up to them and ask them for their phone number, because like we just shared this beautiful intimate moment. And so it just felt like there was sort of a disconnect there. And I had always wanted to connect in this way in sort of a romantic context. So I thought, well, why not create an event if we can create the structure around it to be able to have this intimate experience, make it accessible to people, and make it so that the reason you're coming is to meet other people. Then we can have this sort of like selection process, and you can meet people and say, okay, like I really enjoyed this connection. I want to connect with you more and kind of see what else arises between us. And so I'm like, why not take this kind of format and some of these exercises and make it for the purpose of dating? And everybody comes in knowing that, so it's like that's actually why we're here. And that was the beginning of it, really. And this was, it wasn't even really something I was intending to do. Like now this whole organization is sprouted up, and we have 30 different courses, and we have 20 facilitators around the world teaching these courses. Like that was not my plan. I just wanted to have a more conscious way to meet women in my own life. And I was like, this would be awesome. I would enjoy this. And so I created it, and we did the first one in June, I think, of 2017. And, as soon as that ended and I could feel like how people felt in the room, I was like, oh, like I'm onto something here. And by the end of that year, we were in 6 cities every month, and I was flying around the country doing it in 6 different places every month. Not because I wanted to create like a business around this, but because people would find out about the event and say, would you bring this to my city? So all of a sudden I found myself as like this traveling salesman of love, if you will, shuffling from city to city, bringing this event to different cities. And then at some point, as it kept growing, I realized, well, I can't do this every month and leave home for a week and go to a different city every day. I'm going to need to train people to run this event in different cities. And so that facilitator training program was born out of that. And now, we have facilitators around the world, and everybody's leading this event. And there's been, I think since June, there's been something like 32,000 people have attended a Tantra speed date in some city. So that was not my intention. I wouldn't even be here if Charles wasn't like, you're one of my top students, guy. You should like get out there and teach. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then eventually, like, I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to teach, this is kind of what I want to do. And that's how this whole thing started. So.
Fun. As you're speaking, I'll say felt myself, my cheeks are just smiling because admittingly, I've been promoting Tantra Speed Date through We Deepen for a couple years now, and I have yet to been to an experience. However, as you describe it, I've had that puja experience many times at Tantra workshops, and it always does feel just that connection just fuels me. I feel so much love. So hearing how it originated lights me up in excitement. A couple questions. First up, puja. To confirm, so puja is an offering. It doesn't, because I've seen other people do pujas and they always do, the circles, men on the outside, women on the inside, or vice versa. I can't remember which one it is. Is that a puja, or is puja something else?
Well, I mean, it's a bit more of a generic term. Like it could be like a multi-day event. You could do, I believe, a puja by yourself, but it is a way of sort of traditionally offering, a prayer or prayer to a deity, honoring someone that's coming to visit. You might have like a guest that you're honoring, or as a way to sort of spiritually celebrate something, like any kind of event, or rite of passage or something like that. So it's a pretty generic term for a way for us to, put our intention on devotion to something, on honoring something.
I love that. And I think now that you're kind of distilling the term for me, when I took a Vedic meditation course, actually with Andrew Barrett, we offered a puja. That was part of the training, was to offer a puja to the gods as we began training. I believe it was to the gods. So, okay, cool. And then another question that just came up as you were speaking is sort of in the end, you had mentioned that you were one of Charles's top students. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to be a top student of Tantra?
It's a good question. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I've asked him about it, and he said, and he what he actually said is, Guy, you're at the top 3% of your class. So I've done all the trainings with Charles, and then he created this level 5 training, which only happened once, and I was in it, and there were 40 people in it. And I said, well, what does that mean? Like, why are you saying that I'm in the top 3% of your students? And he says, well, there were 40 people in the class, and you were the top student, so you're in the top 3%. And so I was like, well, firstly, let me correct your math. That's the top 2.5%, number one. And number two, why not just say I'm your top student? Like that's, I don't know what this 3% thing is. I don't actually know what that means. I've asked him about it. I suppose in one instance what it means is that when he's teaching, so if he's doing a teacher training, like I'll get invited to come and teach alongside him, right? Like he refers clients to me and stuff like that. So I'm as surprised as anybody, because there's a lot that goes into studying and doing Tantra. And I discovered it, and I was not intending to be a teacher. I went to teacher training because I wanted to work on my own trauma. I wanted my own healing. And I knew that if I'm going to do this deep sort of teacher training and be with other people that want to be teachers, that want to do this deep work, I'm going to get the most healing out of it. And I did. I wasn't like intending to become a Tantra practitioner. I think I had a day job at the time anyway. And I was like, I just want to learn this for myself. So, over time, he would say, encouraging things to me in the classroom. And, yeah. And, I don't know how this all happened. I didn't choose it. It just kind of chose me. And he had been giving, both myself and Lauren the nudge, because he says the same thing about her. And, we both have taught with Charles. He had been giving both of us sort of the nudge, like, you should get out there and teach. You should get out there and teach. You should get out there and teach. And so, I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it, whatever. And then we did our first event, which wasn't Tantra Speed Date. It was like just a gathering of Tantra. And like a whole bunch of people showed up. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll do this every month. And this sort of community grew up around just us doing events in New York, and then that led to, more courses. It led to Tantra Speed Date. All of a sudden, Lauren and I are flying around the country teaching in all these different cities where we do Tantra Speed Date, because people would attend Tantra Speed Date. They'd discover Tantra. They'd say they wanted more, so we had to create deeper teachings. And now we have this school with, tens of thousands of students, and it's like, this was not my intention to create. It just sort of happened. And I kind of felt like I was kind of running behind it, trying to create the structure to support what this wanted to grow into.
Yeah, I love it. It sounds like Charles saw in you your potential to share the wisdom of Tantra with many, many people, and he took you on as a protege to some extent and empowered you to play that role by seeing it inside of you. So I love that. You mentioned Lauren. Now, Lauren Harkness. Lauren Harkness. She is your co-founder. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah, we created this together.
And Tantra itself, there's a lot of confusion, I think, around what Tantra is. I have heard some definitions that I've heard is, there's one of its deep presence. Mm-hmm. Another recently, Yosef Sagi, who was on episode 9 of Deepen with Christina. He is a Tantra practitioner, and he defined it as a web of interconnectedness. How do you define Tantra?
It's a good question. I like to say that nobody really knows what Tantra is. I certainly can't speak on behalf of Tantra, even though I've studied it and teach it and whatnot, because I think it's a pretty vague and broad term at this point. The word Tantra actually means book among some of the different translated meanings. And back then, meaning thousands of years ago, there were many Tantras. So I like to say, you'll often hear me saying that when someone says, I practice Tantra, it's like they're saying, I listen to music. And it's like, okay, great. So you listen to music, but then I need to know what kind, like, are you into death metal? Are you into jazz, classical? What is what kind of music do you listen to? So there are Tantras that don't have anything to do with sex. There are Tantras that are all about you and yourself and don't involve other people. There are Tantras that do have to do with sex. There's even like a categorization of Tantra, like the white Tantra, the red Tantra, the dark Tantra. There's people that mix white and red together and call it pink Tantra. So there are so many different Tantras, so many different teachers, so many different lineages that when someone's like, hey, I've taken a Tantra class, I'm like, okay, that statement is kind of meaningless because I don't know what you've done in your Tantra class. And, there's no standardized definition. So what we like to say at our event is that it's about connection and it's about presence. And really sort of I see it as a philosophy, as a way to really bring your full presence to what you're doing. So one of the examples I like to use is that, if you drive a car and, you're used to going, let's say, from home to work, right? So that's a route that you know very well. And you've been doing that for years, and you know this route. You know how to get from home to work and from work to home, or whatever that route is for you, that, you could find yourself and probably have driving from point A to point B, and maybe you're also on the phone having like a really intense discussion with a partner or someone, or you're listening to a podcast or the radio, and you're really engaged in this other activity. And so your visual attention is on the road, because without your visual attention on the road, you could not drive from point A to point B. But if you are engaged in a really heated debate with someone over the phone, you might find that you arrive home and you can't really remember exactly how you got from point A to point B because your attention was really on the phone call, right? So in that case, I would say you weren't present to your drive. You weren't driving in sort of a tantric way of like, I'm here, I feel the road, I'm aware of all the cars around me in an intimate way, I'm navigating this space, and all my attention is on my driving. I would call that driving in a tantric way, right? Having your full presence there. But the scenario that I just described is kind of like you're on autopilot. And really, you're elsewhere. You're in this intense conversation that you were having over the phone. So you might not remember certain details of the journey. So one could say that Tantra is about being present for the entire journey in a moment-to-moment way. And then being able to do that in connection with another human being, whether you're simply having a conversation, whether you're exchanging a glance of appreciation at the barista who just handed you a coffee, or whether or not you are engaged in lovemaking with your partner, that, you know, we really want to be as present as possible and with each other moment to moment while we have any kind of experience on this planet. Because when we die, this is all over. And we're not going to be thinking to ourselves, you know, I wish I had more money. I wish I, had a different job or whatever. It's really going to come down to how is it that we were able to be with each other during this experience of life before it's all over.
That level of presence is so rare out in the world, I find. When I started curating these experiences on the We Deepen platform and launching them, one of the first was with Alora Nana. It was called Midnights with Mary. And we would do a puja, and she would guide us through these intimacy exercises, which are Tantra activities. And I remember just seeing that aliveness of people falling in love. And sometimes, too, for a woman in that environment can be overwhelming because and also for men, too, who are very present in those activities, because it's easy you're like a love magnet. You become a love magnet when you're so present because people just fall in love with you. There's a radiance that comes with that level of presence. I find that the people who are, generally doing transformational work, are practicing, from a state of growth. There's flow. Like when you were speaking, I also kind of what was coming up is that state of flow that they say is, there's the big study of flow right now and how it can be in greater flow states and like surfing. And when you're surfing, you're just in it. And so I think there's also parallels between flow and surfing and Tantra and really deep state of presence. And it is magnificent, is beautiful.
Yeah. As you're talking about the radiance of really showing up as love in an experience, I am reminded of a woman who attended Tantra Speed Day very early on in New York. And she had a great experience. She connected with a lot of the men. And she didn't follow up with any of those connections after the event because after the event, immediately after the event, in New York, we like to do a lot of things in a very compressed timeline. So after the event, she had a birthday party to go to. And she went to this birthday party and she met a man there. And this man was like, who is this woman that is just radiant and glowing and is like full of the nourishing connection that she received in the event? And he's like, I have to meet this woman. And so she later wrote to me and said, hey, Guy, I just wanted you to know that the reason I didn't follow up with anyone that I met at the Tantra Speed Date is because right afterwards I met this man and we've been dating. And she said he said he had to meet me because I had this glow about me. And she says, I think I got the glow from every positive interaction I had with every single man in that circle. And so that's when I was like, oh, see, I had created this as a way to meet women in a more mindful way for me. And I started to see that, when we connect with each other in a healthy way, in a positive way, and most importantly, in a generative way, where we both come together and leave the experience having more energy than we did when we first came together, that connection in itself is very nourishing and healing. And then we go out into the world and people are like, who's this person that's connected? Who's this person that's full, that's nourished? And that really ripples out and affects our entire life. So I often, it's funny because women come to me, and the most common thing that I hear them say about this event is they say, Guy, all the best men come to this event, right? And I'm like, well, I think that these are the same guys that if you met them at a bar, you probably wouldn't talk to them. But because we create a space and we show them how to show up in their masculine, that enables you to relax into your feminine, and only then you can open. Because if you're meeting a guy and you've got your guard up, there's no opening there. You've got your guard up and you're waiting to see, what's going to happen. Can I trust a little bit? Can I trust a little bit more? And in this context, when you can feel the presence of a man being in his masculine, right? We're talking about in a heterosexual situation here, because it works in all contexts, but from my experience and from the heterosexual events, this is what I see. When you can feel a man who's showing up in a masculine, grounded place because he's been given instruction on how to do that and a modeling of how to do that, that is going to affect your nervous system as a woman. You're going to feel so good in the presence of this man, right? You're going to instinctively know, oh, I don't have to have my guard up. Like, this is okay. This is cool. It feels so good. It feels so nourishing. And then men come to me and I was like, wow, like this is like what that man said about, I know what it means to show up as a man, because when you stand in that masculine presence and you see how a woman responds to you, you're like, oh, this is how we're supposed to relate to each other. This feels really good. And then the men come to me and say, hey, Guy, how do I be this way all the time? Like, this was so awesome. All these women are opening up to me. How do I be this way all the time? And so it really started to evolve into this event of really showing ourselves how to take these tantric principles, which are the masculine and feminine polarity, and apply them to how we show up in the world and how we show up in a dating context. And that really started. This is why people come back over and over again. They want to step into those roles and experience that.
I love your tagline is it's like yoga for your love life. Uh-huh. And it's so true. It's a place to go and be in practice and in guidance. And similar to how you go to yoga and your yoga teacher tells you to do a downward dog, you go into these spaces and you're in a guided, facilitated practice. And there's, it's not about, and there's no ego. There's not like, I'm not good enough on my own, like that same guy out in a bar. It's not saying like that's, but now you're in a space of practice, and facilitation, and that helps deepen connection. So it is definitely yoga for your love life. And I love the story of the woman leaving the experience and meeting her significant other after, because that's also too what I have been, I've said oftentimes with some of the experiences listed on We Deepen and inclusive of Tantra Speed Date, it's like you can leave and you can go to a Whole Foods and you're just lit up, and you're going to, because you're more feeling more connected to other human beings, that you're more inclined to smile at somebody, to start a conversation. You're just lit up, and that is contagious energy. Everybody wants to be around that. They're going to
want to engage with you, yeah.
Yes. So I love, and I think that, Tantra Speed Date, yes, it is for people who are currently single. And I imagine it was a great experience for couples to go and do something of that sort together. I had the opportunity to attend you and Lauren guided Intro to Sexual Energy course.
Yeah, Intro to Sexual Ecstasy, yeah. In Los Angeles, right? In
Los Angeles, in Venice. And I did get to go to that, and I did get to experience your facilitation with a date or a partner at the time. And it was, we got to be in those practices, and it was so nourishing for the two of us, for our connection, and even just beyond, even just in my life. And some of your programs also, they get a little risky at times. Like, you are opening people up to, you have stuff that's kind of on a spectrum, I would say, that pushes the edge. And where, if we saw the rise and the fall of one taste, but And now I also am in talks of working with Yosef to do a 5-day Tantra massage retreat. But I think of when you deepen into Tantra, you also can guide people to be able to give and receive pleasure in a way that was never maybe taught to them in school. You know, sex ed, we had a intern at We Deepen recently who was 20, and when I asked her and the team about the sex ed that they're learning in school, it's pretty much zilch, none. It's less than what I had, and I didn't have much either. I had abstinence, don't do it, wear a condom. You're going to get STDs.
Don't get pregnant. Don't have sex. If you do, absolutely use a condom or you might die, you know.
Yeah. So how also, you know, if we expand beyond the programs, what is being offered for couples?
Mm-hmm. Well, so we do have a range of programs, and you know, I just want to say that like the Tantra Speed Date is like really a puja light, like it's an extremely PG event, and it's sort of like one of our sort of entry level, like you just kind of get a taste of what it feels like to embody these poles. So we have a lot of stuff on the sort of PG spectrum, and then we have stuff that's totally not on the PG spectrum. You know, we do once or twice a year, we'll do a live demo of extended tantric orgasm. You know, that, you know, involves nudity and, you know, it's a genital stroking practice. So it can get, as deep as you want to be to take these practices and apply them. But Tantra Speed Date's just, you know, a PG thing. I say this because some people are like, Tantra Speed Date? Does that mean we take our clothes off? Like, those are some of the questions that people give me. And I'm like, it's a speed dating event. Like nobody's getting naked. It's not that kind of, if you want to get naked, you have to come to our other event. And generally you can't come to that event unless you've attended a few of our more advanced classes. And, you know, you attended Intro to Sexual Ecstasy, which is sort of like a intermediate class. You know, and again, there's no nudity there either, right? So, there's different layers and levels of how to take this practice of being present. You know, and with Tantra Speed Date, you know, you do simple stuff like eye gazing, right? And then you want to develop that ability to connect with a person and be intimate with someone before you add any sort of sexual skill to it, or if you're going to engage in a deeper way, you want to make sure that you have sort of a foundation. So to come to the couples events, we have had some polyamorous couples actually come to Tantra Speed Date. Which is fine. Like as long as you are available to meet someone, you can come to the event. Like if you're monogamous, it doesn't make sense to come to the event unless you're coming to participate. Like I've often had like Tantra teachers come to the event who were married, and they're like, "We want to come to the event." I said, "Okay, that's fine, but let's have you announce that you're not here in a dating you know, you're not here in a dating context. You're here to be part of the energy in the room, and then you know." Everyone's always very happy to just have more opportunity for connection. So, you know, we were transparent about that if somebody's coming and they're not available. But then what happened was we actually created another event called Tantra Date Night, which is a bring your own partner event. And that one you can come to as a couple, in the same way that like Intro to Sexual Ecstasy, you can come as a single or a couple, right? If you come as a couple, then you have a partner to practice. If you come as a single, you can pair up with someone. And we usually get a pretty good mix. And so Tantra Date Night is the sort of follow-up to Speed Date where you could meet someone at Speed Date and say, hey, I'd like to go on another date with you. Do you want to come to Tantra Date Night with me? And that's an event where you'll be just with your partner and you'll be guided through very similar exercises. And, you know, we might get a little bit deeper, such as, you know, doing massage and stuff like that. So that's an opportunity for couples. The Intro to Sex class is a great opportunity for couples to do together because there you'll learn a vocabulary and a little bit more of a foundation of how to create the level of intimacy you're going to need to engage with each other sexually. So there's many different opportunities. Yeah.
So many different opportunities. The world is our oyster. I did source some questions from the We Deepen WhatsApp chat. We have a group of about 210 people who are generally, you know, regulars. They're within the community. They're visiting these experiences and check the calendar. And someone asked, what's the difference between Tantra speed date and speed dating? I believe you have answered that question. And I guess maybe from it would be helpful maybe to discuss, because I think the types of people, because I think that could be a difference in the types of people that come to a Tantra speed date versus to a regular speed dating event. And I'll also caveat that, from my background, prior to We Deepen being created, I ran a curated dating experience for 2 years called Underground and Attached in New York City, and then brought it out to LA. And in operating of these types of events, quote unquote dating events, there's a lot of stigma around that. There used to be a lot of stigma around online dating. Who are those desperate people that go on dating apps? And then what I realized, from 2014 to 2016, there was a stigma around like going to dating events. Like that seems like where the desperate people go. And I'm like, this is hilarious. There's just all types of expectations and shame and emotions when it comes to dating. So who are the people that you would say that Tantra speed date attracts? And how do you navigate the stigma that some people have around dating events?
It's a good question. We have a lot of people that come are very curious. They want to learn a little bit about Tantra. Often it's their first exposure to Tantra. Most of the people are very mindful, very conscious people, and they want to learn, they want to grow, and this seems like a great way to do that. Or they read the reviews, or they watch like the videos and stuff, and it attracts them. And it is very different than your sort of normal dating experience, and I don't think that people really understand that before they show up. And the reason is because in a sort of normal speed dating experience, which I had attended many of, I've attended many different speed dating and dating experiences. And in the generic sort of speed dating experience, it's like you move from table to table, and you have a conversation with someone. And the difference with Tantra Speed Date is that with Tantra Speed Date, you have an intentional container. We're here in a certain way, and we're going to be facilitated through a series of exercises, some of them nonverbal, as a way to see how it is that we can connect with each other in a different way. So in a regular speed date, like if you're sitting down with someone and they're just not really good at the art of conversation, you won't really get a chance to really know them. And there isn't like a thing to do. It's just like, okay, here's two of us. We have 5 minutes. Am I going to say something first? Is she going to say something first? What is she going to talk about? Oh my God, I hope she doesn't ask me what I do, or where I live, or where I went to camp, or any of those questions that we all ask each other. And in Tantra Speed Date, we do away with all of that. And it's all like, okay, here you are with another being. How is it that the two of you can connect? Like there's an eye gazing exercise. Okay, so am I willing to do the eye gazing exercise, right? Because you can opt out of any exercise at any time. It's totally consent based and really focused on your empowerment and sort of like, what do I want to do? What do I feel okay with? So if you don't feel like you want to do the eye gazing, you take, the sort of we have a pose that you take that is the sort of the way that you communicate that you're taking a break from the station. So it's you take a step back, you bring your hands into namaste, and that's how you communicate. I'm just taking some time for myself right now, right? So you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, and we're huge about consent at the event. So let's say you're in an eye gazing station. You're like, okay, I'm willing to try this. And maybe it's the first time you've done eye gazing. Maybe it's the first time your partner has done eye gazing. Well, now you're with this person and you're like, okay, like I'm with this person and sometimes they're glancing away. So I can feel that there's a little bit of discomfort there. Okay, great. You've just now learned something about you and this person and how you interact with each other that is like several layers of depth beyond what do you do for a living? And you haven't even exchanged a single word yet. Right? But you can feel what wants to be created between the two of us. Is there chemistry here? Is there energy here? Is there a curiosity about the other person? Right? Whereas if we're in a dating context, and even if we are a good conversationalist, we're wrapped up in dialogue, and most of our relating to each other, 93% of our relating is nonverbal. So it really takes this thing and says, okay, how is it that I can just be present with another person, follow the facilitated instructions that I'm hearing or not, and then you get to see, how is this person responding? How are they doing at following the instructions? Where does it feel like they're comfortable? Where does it feel that they're not comfortable? And how is this relationship that is starting to emerge happening?
That pressure on being a conversationalist in dating, I like to think of Tantra speed date as a practice. It's a practice to go for dating. And as that one review had said, is that now to go out in your dating life and have more tools, I'll say, in your toolbox of activities that you can do with a significant other. Otherwise, it's pretty much talking and fucking. It's like we go from talking to fucking. It's like that's what we're and there's just so much other good stuff, other ways of getting to know somebody, of just being in their energetic energy field, and to get in, in the practice of being okay with the silent pauses of the eye contact. And we don't have spaces to practice that. So this is a good space. And also too is oftentimes, I think as when you're single, you do go out in the world to events and parties and such, and we're in this mind frame of this searching and sorting. And what I feel from Tantra Speed Date is this, it's a place to see and serve. You're not searching and sorting, you're seeing and serving those in front of you. And it's a practice, and this is another one from one of my teachers, Alora Nana. It's that of seeing the one in all ones and being the one with all ones.
Yeah.
So in your experiences, how do you navigate also then age? Because age is one thing that I was always challenged by with Underground and Attached. We would have where, our experience was I would say much more hands-on with Underground and Attached, because it was 3 hours. We would facilitate these activities. Everyone would fill out a questionnaire before they attended, 5 questions about themselves, 5 questions about their desired partner. I'd read them. I'd have a one-on-one phone conversation with everyone before they entered the room. It was a high price point of $199. And I started to have, people would reach out from, 45, 55, 65, 70, can I come? I want to be a part of this. And as well as at times we would get the younger ones who were just like more advanced, and they were ready to, they wanted marriage and children and family at 23. So as you're putting these experiences together, how do you think through age?
Well, mostly the event is an open age range event, which means anybody can come. And those actually tend to work out the best. There's always somebody for everybody, because we get a good mix of ranges. Sometimes we do an age range specific event. But the beauty of the open age range is that, really this is a dating event. It's also a workshop in learning how to show up in these two poles. And it's funny because, sometimes I have like if you're, let's say, a 20-year-old man and you're having a station with a 40-year-old woman, first of all, I don't sort of have any judgments about anything. I think that's a perfectly fine pairing if that's something that you're feeling. But if you're 20 and you can actually hold space for a 40-year-old woman to relax into her feminine with all of the experience that she's had in this world and in this culture leading up to her being the place that you're in, that's going to increase your value as a man. And you're going to go out there, and if you are looking to meet somebody who's really closer to your age, which most young men are in the beginning, then that's going to increase your value. And when you walk around, women are going to feel that value, because when you are able to hold space for a woman to relax into her feminine, there's a circuit that's created there. There's an exchange that's created there. There is a love and appreciation and a validation from the feminine that she is sending to your system that your nervous system is receiving. And then when you walk around, other women's nervous system are going to feel that. They're going to be able to feel this man has value because other women have appreciated him. him. That's literally something that we can feel in each other. So sometimes we do have, like, it's usually the younger guys that they'll show up, and if they don't see enough younger women, or like they're always looking for like the hot girl in the room, and if they don't perceive to find somebody like that, they might leave if they see older people there, because that's not something that they're looking for. And it's funny because there's always people for them. And you know what's funny is that, like, the young women are generally late to the event. So if the young men are early, they show up. None of the young women have arrived yet. They leave. Then the young women show up, and which is ironic because, like, they actually can have what they want if they hang around. But I always kind of like feel sad for them, because I know what you get out of showing up in this role as a man, and I know that there's nowhere else in the world where you can learn how to show up as this kind of man. Because we're going to guide you, we're going to show you how to do it. We make it easy to show up as this kind of man. And I always think to myself, like, it's a shame, because every now and then we do get a guy who abandons the event because, he wants there to be more younger women. And I'll usually have a chat with them. Sometimes they're open to stay, sometimes they're not. But I know how this impacts you as a man, and the value that it brings to you. And really it's about how do we become better at relating? How do we increase our ability to connect, which then increases our value, not just to someone that we want to be in a relationship with, but to everyone and to ourselves. And then we start meeting people that, have higher value, or are kind of vibrating at a higher, they're more available to connect because we're more available to connect. So it's such an overwhelmingly positive benefit. Which is why another common thing that we hear is, Guy, I don't care if I met anyone at this event. This was amazing. I had a great time. I feel so nourished. I feel so full. And that's probably one of the key things that distinguishes us from a speed dating event. Because when I used to go to a speed dating event, it's like, how much did I pay for the ticket? How many people did I meet that I actually want to connect with? And so for me, I think that that's sort of like the gold seal of approval, that it's like, I went to a Tantra speed date. I don't care if I met anyone. This was amazing. It changed my life.
I remember from an underground and attached to one of my favorite stories as well was a young woman had attended in her 20s, and I had a friend who was in his 50s at the time, and he wanted to come, and so they both came and they connected, and he became one of her greatest mentors. Mm-hmm. So when you're open, all these types of connections can take place and happen. Two things. I know we got to wrap this podcast pretty soon because you have a meeting coming up. Mm-hmm. Two things that I want to last point out is, one is that this experience there's no alcohol. There's no substance. It's a substance-free mm-hmm. environment, which is rare because a lot of us are so used to alcohol being a part of the dating process. So I love that even in the speed dating, I have been to a speed dating or a couple speed dating events before, and they're always at a bar, always went and got a drink and sat down. So there's none of that there, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even our play parties, there's no alcohol allowed.
No alcohol. Love.
For two reasons. One is that we're all about following your desire and your sensations, and alcohol is going to dull your ability to feel your sensations. And your sensations are what are going to guide you as to, do I want to connect with this person? Do I feel like I have a connection with someone? So that's one reason, is alcohol will inhibit your access to your body's sensations and will dull them. And number two, alcohol also impairs your cognitive ability, and that's where consent comes in, right? So it's like the absolute anti presence substance. So for that reason, we don't do that.
Love that. And then lastly, this experience that we're talking about is mainly, the current setup structure is mainly for heterosexual people. Mm-hmm. And I know that you have produced experiences before for the LGBT community. Mm-hmm. And those happen every once in a while. I believe that mainly when people reach out and you do them upon request, but this is something that I imagine that people are questioning about, like, wait, what about us? Mm-hmm.
Totally.
How are you going to include us?
Totally. Yeah, we have The original iteration of Tantra Speed Date is heterosexually oriented. All of our other events are inclusive, and you can come, regardless of your gender orientation or whatnot. With the speed date, because it's a dating event and people are coming there and saying, I'd like to meet, so someone's going to say, I'm a man, I want to stand in the men's circle and I want to meet women. We organize it in that way because there's two circles. We have had people that are bisexual, that are trans, that are non-binary come to that hetero-based event, but you have to choose, am I in the women's circle or am I in the men's circle, because there's two circles, right? We do have a queer version of the event where there's one circle and everybody meets everybody. It's a different kind of format. And I did that based on request because people wanted it. So, I hired a queer facilitator and consulted with him, and we were able to adapt the format so that it works in an LGBTQ plus scenario, and we ran it a couple of times. So every now and again when somebody asks for that, we will do that. But we haven't often done that because people will often ask for it, but then when we put it out there, nobody shows up for the event. So, when it's by request, like we do this event at the Center SF in San Francisco, and one of the years during Pride weekend, they're like, can you do a queer Tantra speed date for Pride weekend? So, okay, great. Like that makes sense. We'll do that. But it's really mostly by request. We also have a version of the event that's poly Tantra speed date, where everyone's polyamorous, which we've also done in a few cities. We do that from time to time, maybe once or twice a year. But the most common format for the event is the heterosexual version. So if you see in the title that it says poly Tantra speed date or queer Tantra speed date, then that's a different version. But if you just see Tantra speed date, then that's a heterosexual and open age range version.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Guy, for the work that you're doing in the world. And I'm honored that we get to share your experiences through WeDeepen.com. My goal is to network experiences like yours, but are uniquely different. But underneath all of them, they all, when networked together, help people to have healthier, meaningful, more loving relationships. Mm-hmm. And as we grow, we'll get more exposure and we'll be able to do those LGBT experiences and the poly experiences more often because we have more eyeballs and more people are going to show up. Mm-hmm. So if you are listening to this podcast and you are not in a relationship, consider coming to a Tantra speed date. And also share this with friends. Invite them to come out. Invite them to go to these experiences, because the more people that are coming out of their houses, where all the magic happens when you walk outside of your door, and attending these experiences, the more that we get to do them and should share them with you. So, Guy, thank you for your work in the world. Also, too, I almost forgot to tell you all, if you're listening, use the promo code WeDeepen when you're registering for a Tantra speed date experience. You will save 15% on the event, and we will keep bringing them to you as well. So check the calendar, WeDeepen.com. Guy, if somebody wants to hear more, learn more about you, where should they go?
Come to the Tantra Institute. It's tantrany.com. You'll be able to see over 30 different courses that we're offering right now. Many of them are free. We do a free show every week called the Intimacy Hour. On Zoom, we have community events where you can come and hang out and meet people. And all of the Tantra Speed Date events are listed on the website there by city, so you can kind of find, is there one happening near me? So tantrany.com for more stuff like that. And thank you very much for having me here. I'm really impressed with the work that you're doing in the world and with your enthusiasm and curiosity for deepening in relationships. I very much have always felt it's in line with what we're doing at the Tantra Institute, where our mission is to be better lovers. And we mean that in sort of a global way, like not just in the bedroom, but how do we just love each other while we're on this planet? So I really am grateful that to be here on the show with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, better lover. I want to be a better lover, like for the rest of my life, even, from 70 to 80, I want to improve my love life, even in my later years.
Well, that's actually the title of our weekly newsletter is the Better Lover newsletter. And we talk about a particular topic and how to be a better lover every week. So, that's kind of our big thing.
Cool. Well, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, again, share it with a friend. Go check out the We Deepen calendar. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook, Christina Weber. Check it out. Check out We Deepen on Instagram too. If you're interested in joining our WhatsApp community, send me a message. Happy to send you an invite to that as well. And I appreciate you all tuning in. Subscribe, like, send a review, do all of the things that helps us to get the word out. And I love you and appreciate you. And I'm so grateful that this is the job that I get to do in the world. I get to present to you some of the most greatest transformational experiences that can change your life in the most beautiful, positive way. We deepen. Bye, everyone.